Greetings, YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's Troy here. Today we're going to be talking about your New Year's resolution, if it was to lose some weight. I'd love to hear how it's going. Let me know in the comments below. And I'll walk you through some thoughts that I had about maybe some ways that our eyes are bigger than our stomach. And we'll talk about something that I've experienced and maybe have a tendency towards, and probably many of us do, and it's overeating. So in this video, we'll talk about how you can defeat the snack monster. And if you get value in it, I'd love for you to let me know by giving me that thumbs up. Subscription would make my day. And let's get right into it here. Overeating. It's tough, right? And many of us who have tried to lose weight in the past or have tried to follow a healthy lifestyle and, really have ever limited ourselves before when it comes to eating probably are familiar with the experience of extreme hunger and just almost like trying to fill a void with food. And that never ends well. So I have some ideas on how we can maybe defeat the snack monster, eat a little bit less. It's not easy, but you can definitely do it. And what I find is that when we empty our cup, so to speak, when maybe, let's say, we're not eating so much food, there's room in our cup or in our life, so to speak, for us to experience other things. So explore that. Explore off-the-plate nutrition, or things that nourish you, bring you energy and joy and fulfillment, that aren't food things. So explore that. One way to defeat the snack monster or to overcome those feelings of hunger, one way is to embrace that feeling as a positive thing. So one of the things that I like to say is give yourself the gift of hunger. Get in touch with that feeling of hunger, embrace it, be thankful for it, and tell yourself, boy, I'm hungry, and that means my metabolism is running, and I'm moving towards my goal, which if it's losing weight, if you're hungry and you're not eating, then what you're doing is you're making progress. Hunger is where the progress is. Embrace it, and you'll be going in the right direction if you can do that consistently. The next thing, what if we tried to stop eating when we were around 80% full? Now, what I often do, and what many people probably do, is they eat until they're full. And what I've heard is that there's a little bit of a delay between the point where we are actually full, where our stomach is filled, and then there are messages sent from our stomach to our brain telling us, hey, we've had enough, stop. I've heard that there's a little disconnect there, or maybe even a little delay in that process. So we probably overeat. And how does it feel when you overeat? Do you feel great the next day? Probably not, right? I know I feel sluggish and kind of, I feel like I'm still processing food from the day or the night prior. And that's maybe not the best feeling in the world. So something to explore is to push away from the table or to stop eating when you're around 80% full. So kind of going back to the other point of, embracing the hunger, you stop eating when maybe you still could keep eating. But you get in touch with that and you try to stop around 80%. So you eat until you've had enough and you feel like maybe you could even eat a little more, and you say, you know what? I don't think I'll have a little more this evening. And that brings us into, something that I've found to work really well for me. If you're on your program, you're probably already at this point cooking your own food, right? We can talk about some of the takeout traps, but so imagine you're eating real food. You procure your own ingredients and prepare them to your liking. But, when you have access to that whole pan of food, I have a tendency to just want to keep eating until the whole thing is gone. So what about this? Okay, what about you cook your own food, and that's great. Then what you do before you portion it out for, if you're making it for you and your family, or you and your spouse, whatever it is, or just you, You put everyone's food on their plate, right? But before you start eating, you portion up your leftovers. You make a meal or two for the next day. And meal prep is one of the ways that people find works for them. And people make a lot of progress by meal prepping, which helps people avoid, again, the takeout trap. But if you box up your leftovers before you start eating, at least for me, is what I find, then when you finish that first plate of food that you've given yourself, and maybe you feel like that little voice is telling you to go back to the stove and have a little more. For me, if I do that, I'm just going to keep doing it until the whole pan is gone. So box up your leftovers first. Take a Tupperware, fill it up, maybe even, whatever it is that you're portioning, do that and put it away. Put it in the fridge. Wash the pan. Put the pan away. Then go and sit down and eat the plate that you prepared for yourself. And then when that little voice is telling you that maybe you should have a little more, you've already put it away, and so you'll probably avoid it because of the extra trouble. And then finally, when you're portioning it out, right? You've made yourself the food, and you go to the pan and you put your portions away, and then as you're going to give yourself your portion, whatever food it is that you're going to eat when you sit down to eat, when you're cooking at home, try putting it on a smaller plate. It sounds really silly, but when you have a certain amount of food on a very large plate, it maybe doesn't seem like it's so much food. We have a tendency to want to fill our plate with food. And visually to us, it's just we feel like we're getting more. It's an optical illusion in comparison to the size of the plate. But keeping that in mind, try eating off a smaller plate. This works great for me. It sounds so ridiculous, but for some reason, if I eat off a small or a medium-sized plate instead of a large plate, I just feel more satisfied. It's just something visually about the food taking up, most of the space on the plate. It allows me to eat less. It sounds very silly. The invitation is for you to try it yourself. And if any of these techniques you find to be helpful or you think they're stupid, I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.